Hello, I have a book to talk about. It is Sharon Tate, a biography of Sharon Tate by Ed Sanders, the author of the national bestseller, The Family, and with illustrations by Rick Vichik. And yeah, it's pretty good. This is he wrote The Family, which was published, I think, in 1971, a long, long time ago. And apparently he kept thinking about the whole story for years and years and years. He updated The Family in 2001, according to the text in this book, and then this one came out in 2015. So it's kind of recent. I don't even know why I ran into it. I guess I was just looking up something and said, oh, Ed Sanders wrote another book about Sharon Tate. I should read it. So I got it from the New York Public Library, and it was actually quite interesting. Of course, it goes through the life of Sharon Tate, the actress who was, well, when was she born? I don't remember. Anyway, quite a few years older than I was, and she became an actress, and she was like a beauty queen, all that kind of stuff. And her father was a military man through his entire career up until after she died, and he resigned from the military, or retired from the military at age like 46 or something, after Sharon Tate was murdered, because he wanted to investigate for himself what all went on. So she was this military child, which meant that you move here and there and there and there, and with her family, and her dad rose up pretty high in the military. He was a intelligence officer that, it says, protected the Nike nuclear missile systems. Like somehow he was intelligence, and somehow assigned to protect the Nike missile bases from, spies, I guess. I don't know. So on and on, and she ends up getting involved in movies, so forth, as we know, and it goes through all the films that she made. First was The Eye of the Devil, I believe it was called, in 1966. And I think ending with Murderers Row. Was that the name of him? A Dean Martin movie, Matt Helm movie, was one of her final appearances in the screen. And her dad actually was watching that movie on a military base at the time that she was being murdered. This book, I've been reading these other. I read The Family when it came out, so that's over 50 years ago. So I don't remember that much about The Family, and I think I'm going to have to read it again. When I read the book about the Process Church, or part of the book about the Process Church, it talks about how they sued the publisher Dutton and Ed Sanders to remove stuff about the Process Church in connection with Charles Manson, and as if that affected the murder and so forth. Now, there is a question here about why that house was chosen, why she was murdered, what went on about all that, and that is the primary mystery of that. Now, I think in Chaos, or one of the other books about Manson I've read, a lot of that had to do with Terry Melcher. Terry Melcher having lived there in the past, and but Ed Sanders doesn't really get into that at all. He barely mentions Terry Melcher, and looks into a lot of what the scene was with that house, and with who was living there, and what they were into. themselves. And one of the people who was killed is somebody I'd heard of actually before he ever was killed, was Jay Sebring. Jay Sebring was a big time Hollywood barber, hairdresser for men. And I remember hearing about him, way before he was murdered, as the guy who was cutting like Frank Sinatra's hair. He was particularly talented as a hairdresser. He cut the hair of all the stars and so forth. And he was a boyfriend of Sharon Tate, and continued to be a friend of hers, and continued to hang around even after she was married to Roman Polanski. And he was there the night of the murders and was murdered himself. There's certain stuff about him that's quite interesting. He was apparently kind of into occult stuff and into like wild parties. So other people who were murdered at the house, one was this guy Frykowski, who was Polish, and he was apparently like boyfriend of Abigail Folger, who was also murdered. They had another house. They had another place to live, but they were hanging out at the house. It was a really big house, so lots of room. So they were hanging out at the house a lot, and apparently they had like wild parties, like sex orgies and stuff when Sharon wasn't there. So all this stuff about them, and Frykowski was also involved with the importing of the MDA, and these people were kind of wild and kind of sketchy in a way. So then that was the question of, was this somehow a drug hit, some kind of somebody got burnt with drugs and therefore a hit, and there is some indication that some of that is in fact so, but and also at the end, he goes into more stuff about the process. He doesn't really name the process church all that much. He just says a satanic sort of cult from Britain, which of course that's what the process was, which was an offshot of Scientology. A couple of people who were Scientologists split off and started doing their own thing with the kind of e-meter things and so forth, and started this whole thing, the Process Church, which is now called Friends of Animals or something. It still exists in this third sort of name. So at the end, he goes into speculating why Sharon Tate was murdered, and one of the speculations is that somehow it was a hit that was contracted by these process people that had Charlie Manson kill these people because of this process stuff. So, a lot of Hollywood people show up in this book, and sort of central to of it all is one of the persons who's around a lot is John Phillips. John Phillips, who was, really kind of a sleazy guy. He was the guy that created the Mamas and the Papas and wrote their big hits. And also, if you're going to San Francisco, wear some flowers in your hair. And he was riding high around this time and had a lot of money. And he had a Rolls Royce and a Jaguar. I mean, why these people need to have Rolls Royces, I don't know. But, this is, a picture of the elite of these people, of the elite of people. And, I myself, I've been reading this at the same time of these Epstein file revelations, and it just, it kind of all came together in my head in a way that's like, oh gee, any sort of winner in this culture, any sort of elite ends up just being into some kind of just horrible crap, and with the money and what you need and the drugs that they end up taking, with all the cocaine and so forth. There's a lot of cocaine around this scene in 1969 here, and Jay Sebring was into cocaine and had cocaine on him when he died, and in his car, and owed a lot of money to people for whatever. I don't know, related to his drug things or going over his head with his businesses. He was also opening a hair salon in San Francisco at the same time. So it becomes this picture of, once again, these sort of elite, wild people who and at the end it was like, well, are any of these people really any good anyway? And then we have Polanski himself, who was making all these sort of dark movies. He made his mark with these basically dark movies, and he went to film school in communist Poland, and then left to the West and started making these commercial movies. His first feature in Poland was called A Knife in the Water, which I have not seen, but I saw another version of the movie. And then he made the Cul-de-sac, which is a pretty good movie. I watched that many years ago. And then The Fierce Vampire Killers, in which he had Sharon Tate in that movie when they were together at that point. So there's all this stuff about Polanski too, and how he's messing with this woman and that woman. That is not made a big issue of as far as Sharon and Polanski mainly, and Sharon maybe some seeing other people while they're together and while they're married. But Polanski seemed to be willing to sort of do whatever, and then later, I think it was 10 years later or whatever, when he's at Jack Nicholson's house and gives that girl, gives 13-year-old girl a Quaalude and fucks her, and then gets in trouble, and that's why he is in exile. He's not not able to come back to the United States and make movies because of this standing issue of him being convicted for this this statutory rape situation that happened back then. And I think there's a new movie being produced about that situation. So, yeah, so Sharon Tate, was pregnant. Oh, there's another thing that is interesting about the whole thing. Is like around this time, all the same stuff was happening. Like Sirhan shot or was convicted of shooting Robert F. Kennedy at the Ambassador Hotel at the end of his campaign for president, the primary in California. So Robert F. Kennedy was killed then, and I read another book about that, and there's a lot of speculation, and it's sort of confirmed in this that Sirhan just doesn't really know what went on. He was kind of like some sort of a mind control guy or something, and ultimately not really the shooter. That someone shot Kennedy really right close into his head. Powder burns from the gun, close enough to be really close, whereas Sirhan was in front and shooting maybe blanks. So anyway, that's a whole other story. But there is a question that maybe Sharon was offed because she had some kind of inside information at one of these parties or one of these occult things or something that had, that she knew why Sirhan, or who was the real killer, or what was going on with the RFK killing, and so that's also a speculation that she somehow knew about that, and that's one reason why the Manson cult went there and murdered her. So there are some videos, some interesting videos online with made from some years ago of Ed Sanders talking about these books, or not this book, but about the case, and also Doris Tate, Sharon Tate's mother, in one of them with him, and because she still doesn't know exactly why her daughter and her granddaughter, or son, I think it was a baby boy ultimately, that was in her belly when she was murdered and stabbed, and in this horrible way. One thing I didn't quite realize is that it took them a long time to solve this case. Even though there was the La Bianca murders, right near that, and this other guy, Hillman, I think, that was Hinneman, that was murdered before that, and that it took them the murder of all these people at in the Sharon Tate house happened, I think, August 9th. And the case was not really cracked until December. So, when the cops announced that they'd finally cracked the case, and decided that it was the Manson family that did it, and so forth. So that's a long time between, where it was kind of a mystery, and people were wondering, are we going to get hit next, and so forth. So it's, it's just sort of a murky story of as I said, it just sort of left me with, kind of a creepy feeling. Like, how do, these are the winners in our culture, and, who wants to win in a culture like this, where you end up being people, like that, these movie people, and Jay Sebring, and all these kind of people who are, and it has stuff about the occult, like not only the process, but other, that Jay Sebring was into the occult, and they had some sort of occult parties that they went to, and there's an interview quoted of Steve McQueen saying that he went to one of these parties, these occult things, and he was like turned off and went away from the whole scene. So and then that brings us back to these revelations of the Epstein files, and sort of ritual occult activities with all that, and I actually did a review of I think it was a Satanic Panic documentary some time ago, last year maybe, and talking about the Satanic Panic as being just sort of all fake and all that. And, after these revelations and reading more things, and hearing this and that, it seems like there are really people who are into these satanic rituals, and elite people who are into this sort of ritual stuff. And I don't know if if they, not that they believe in Satan so much, in they just, it's like a fraternity of how you get in the fraternity. You got to do this stuff with these people in order to be part of the scene, and be one of the in crowd, and so I don't really know, but it's all made me relook this whole Satanist thing. I don't believe in God or Satan, but apparently Satanist, satanic people don't necessarily believe in Satan either, but are into these kind of ritual things involving sex, and involving maybe younger people, and all this stuff, because they're rich and they can, and they're sleazes, I guess. I don't know. So. Oh, I don't think I mentioned Chaos in this. I did read Chaos by Tom O'Neill some years back, and this book doesn't really go into the mind control stuff with Manson, a little bit with Sirhan, as I said. So, I don't know. It's a different sort of approach and a different point of view. So there's that. Anyway, Sharon Tate by Ed Sanders, and maybe I'll show a couple pictures from the drawings that are in the book along the way here. And it was kind of interesting, although happy to be away from this story right now for a while, because you know, it's just sort of nasty, and it just sort of you know, as I said, with the Epstein stuff and everything right now, it just sort of just didn't it didn't feel that good, you know. So I should read something nicer next time. So thank you for watching. Like and subscribe.